Sans plus tarder, la mairesse.
So without any further ado, the Mayor of Montreal. So thank you very much, and hello everyone. So I am here together with Mr. Luc Lavoie, who is the person responsible for the economic development and commercial development and design, yes, within the executive committee, as well as the mayor of the Plateau Montreal. We are here to talk to you, since Mr. Rabouin is here, to talk to you about economic development. And these are good news that we want to talk to you about this afternoon. The government of Quebec has announced, or did a little earlier on today, that neighborhood stores are not going to be reopening before the 25th of May for the time being in the greater Montreal area. Although I am in full agreement with this decision, since public health has to be the priority at all times, and it is still important to come and help Montreal business owners, and that's why today's announcement is perfect. In the past week, we gave an emergency fund of $40 million for the government of Quebec for business owners, and we also announced a moratorium on loans offered by PME Montréal, and we also proceeded to the launch of the League of Information to Entrepreneurs, which received over 5,000 requests since it was created. Today, we will continue in the same sense with the deployment of subsidies that will reach $5 million and which are being offered to business owners, to social economy businesses, and cultural businesses. My colleague, Luc Rabouin, will talk to you about the measures that have been set up for social economy enterprises and cultural businesses, but let me give you a few details on the measures that we'll be deploying for business owners. Business owners in Montreal have shown a lot of resilience since the beginning of the crisis, and they are still doing so. That is why we are announcing the creation of a fund of $2 million to support business owners in their activities. These $2 million represent direct help. This is not a loan. This amount is to be added to the $1 million to the Commercial Entrepreneurial Fund, which means that in total, $3 million are available in subsidies for Montreal business owners. Business owners will be able to use that money to adapt their businesses to the new public health standards, for example. Some businesses have already started deploying prevention measures, such as plexiglass panels at cash registers, but not everybody has had the opportunity to do so or did not have the means. Business owners will also be able to use these amounts to develop or improve their online platform to better respond to clientele demands. And before passing the mic to my colleague Luc, I also wanted to come back to a few elements which we find interesting in the report on vacant lots, which was revealed earlier on today. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, neighborhood stores were at the heart of our priorities. One of the issues worried us, that is of vacant businesses. It is very important in Montreal, but also elsewhere in Quebec and the country, and even in the large metropolis everywhere around the world. So we have decided to attack this problem by bringing together the groups that could help us to think about better ways and find solutions that would be pertinent and feasible. So what we wanted to have mainly was a clear portrait of the situation, but as well of setting up an important consultation once again that would come and support this thought process. The consultation process, I wish to say, was exemplary despite the challenges posed by the pandemic. 4 modes of consultation were deployed, of which a few were tested for the first time, and I wish to salute the work of the Commission on Economic Development, as well as Urban and Housing Development, as well as the enthusiastic participation of the population. About 50 memoirs were filed. Over 4,000 people answered an online form. A co-creation workshop between owners and business owners was organized, and a local consultation in all 19 boroughs took place. This shows our willingness to mobilize all stakeholders facing this issue and finding solutions together. The report of the Commission is quite clear. The vacancy rate, even before the impact of the of the pandemic was 2 to 3 times superior to the vacancy rate that is judged to be acceptable. This is very concerning, and we are ready to act. Commercial arteries have a crucial role to play in the vitality of our living environments. The commercial sector will be a pillar of the relaunch plan of the City of Montreal. Some of the recommendations of the Commission have already been set up by the city, such as measures during the crisis, and it is the case, for example, everything having to do with e-line platforms for all stores. We have set up measures to support those businesses that wish to develop their online offering, and we have also set up, together with our partners from commercial development, a delivery service that is ecological and dedicated to neighborhood stores. This work could not have been done without the SDCs and the commercial associations, they are privileged partners, and we wish to continue working together with these actors in order to identify the needs that are true to each different artery and commercial streets. The government of Quebec will have to be another partner of choice in order to help develop a global approach that will allow us to reduce the vacancy rate in businesses. The government could, for example, proceed to legislative modifications that would allow the setup of structuring measures such as giving a good framework to commercial leases, as well as initiatives for transitory or temporary occupation. Community, cultural projects are also very pertinent in the upcoming context to help us to redefine certain uses. The idea of working together with the SDCs for the setup of a real estate strategy in order to be able to have buildings on busy arteries to ensure a commercial mixity will also be studied, because more business owners will be owners of their own premises individually or via NGOs, thus there will be speculation. The creation of a centralized registry of vacancies and also a certificate of vacancy rates will have to be considered, and the city will be mandated in its economic services to do so. Also, we're also calling out to the Montreal population to support our local business owners. The crisis that we're going through is hitting our entrepreneurs and business owners very much so. And more than ever, we have to prioritize consuming locally. Montrealers are showing a lot of solidarity during this very difficult period, and I know that their commercial arteries are important to them, and that is why I invite them to go visit them, while, of course, respecting the public health authorities' rules and encouraging our businesses because they truly need it. I now give the mic to Luc Rabouin, who is going to talk to you about a nice social funding campaign that will be deployed to support our business owners, as well as the measures that have been set up for social economy enterprises, as well as the cultural ones. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you mentioned, the present situation is very difficult for business owners and social economy businesses as well as cultural businesses in Montreal. Since the beginning, we have been present to support them. We have set up many very concrete measures in order to help them get through the present crisis. The emergency help of $5 million, which we are announcing today, of which a part was presented to you by the mayor, has been developed in complementarity or with a vision of complementarity with other government programs. So what we're doing is really to fill where we identified lacks or where there was a specific support that was necessary compared to the other programs offered by the provincial or federal governments. And because we know that the help is necessary and that we have to do more, and because we also know the very strong attachments of Montrealers towards their local businesses, the City of Montreal is joining the initiative of the Desjardins movement, Cœur à l'achat, which was announced last week. So over the next few weeks, there will be participative funding campaigns that will be launched in order to support the commercial recovery on the entire agglomeration of Montreal territory. And this concept was sent together with La Ruche, which is a non-profit organization and the Association of Commercial Development Associations of Montreal. The different local campaigns will be initiated by the SDCs and the Association of Business Owners. So sometimes, there are business owners, voluntary associations that can help and set up these campaigns with the support of the ruche. These campaigns will allow the population to support their local businesses in a very concrete way by purchasing gift cards, which will be exchangeable in the businesses when they become open. And the city will improve the amount of that amount up to $500,000. So there will be local campaigns, and the city will improve the local campaigns, and we have an amount of $500,000 to come and support that initiative. It will help business owners, of course, to be able to face their issues with liquidities, which, of course, are becoming more and more pressing. When Montrealers will proceed to the purchase of gift cards, Mouvement des Jardins will give an amount to community organizations in the neighborhoods that are organizations that are committed right now in the direct service to the most vulnerable populations during the crisis of COVID-19. So these funding campaigns that are participative could generate $2 million in direct investment in local businesses and Montreal organizations. And I wish to emphasize the fact that there is a first campaign that is going to be launched tomorrow in the boroughs Hochelaga, Maisonneuve, Verdun, and Sud-Ouest, thanks to the leadership of the local development businesses and elected officials who decided to go forward without waiting for a program that was going to be announced by the city. So that is an initiative that we can salute. So the movement is started, and there will be many in the upcoming days and weeks. When we announced our $5 million emergency fund, we had identified 3 priority sectors that were going through particular difficulties. Of course, local businesses, the mayor already talked about it. La Ruche, that campaign is also helping out in that, but we already identified 2 other sectors. So social economy businesses and the creative and cultural industry. For the sector of social economy businesses, which often work in essential services, and we've seen many of these companies help us out right now, for example, the distribution of meals in day centers for homeless people. So they are very active, and we truly need that. They're very useful, but they have huge challenges, and they have few capacity to borrow money. A lot of the programs that have been set forward are loans, and they have very little capacity to do so. So we've had $2 million, which is the same one that we put in the business owners, to offer direct subsidies to social economy businesses to help them get through the crisis. These funds are going to be available through the SME network in Montreal, which is how we finance businesses in Montreal. And those subsidies are going to allow them to add and be leveraged and involve other financial partners in the survival and the progressive recovery of their activities, so that a maximum number of organizations can pull through. So that the greatest number of social economy businesses have access to those funds, we have also eased the conditions to access. So the rules are not as strict. So often, to have access to subsidies, we asked for a pretty important amount, for example, of a down payment, but we have removed this to be able to help them have access to. These amounts are going to help them adapt to the present crisis, either through sanitary measures or by reviewing their business model, or by supporting their, everyday expenses like the rents and things like that. Companies will also have access to a $300,000 amount fund to offer technical resources. Sometimes they need help for the resource of human resources, going digital, etc. So they will have access to specialized services. So in order to support and offer specialized services, we already have concluded agreement with Telescope, which is a specialized ONG in the financial planning sector, and also in social economy businesses that are specialized in training remotely, resource of human management, revision of business models, and with a consortium of cooperative expertise that has an entire pool of consultants that are available. So we're bringing together financing an entire team of experts to help all businesses get through. For cultural businesses, we also have a $500,000 amount to support most particularly the private, non-subsidized, what we call alternative rooms here, showrooms. And we also include in that independent cinemas. So all those rooms have been closed. They often work with very small budgets, and they are really the ability for emerging artists to present themselves, and we want to be able to help them get through this crisis in a specific way because they play a key role in the vitality and cultural dynamism of Montreal. And they also contribute to making our neighborhoods alive and vibrant. And unfortunately, they are hit by the present crisis and have very few means and reserves to be able to get through the crisis. That is why we are adding this significant amount to support them. So we want to support the Montreal cultural companies and help them get through, because when the crisis is behind us, we will want to continue going there and having access to the unique works of art that are proposed to us by emerging artists. And since many cultural enterprises are also sometimes social economy enterprises, so they're made into co-ops or under NGOs, well, they will be able to combine both programs that we are setting up this morning. And of course, all of them will have access to the 40 million loan fund that is available through SME Montreal. So the message is the entry door is SME Montreal that can show you all the programs and help you have a financial amount that will in part maybe have subsidies and in part loans to really help you get through this crisis. So to conclude, I wish to salute the collaboration of the entrepreneurial domain in Montreal that helped us in the elaboration and the setup of these very concrete measures to support enterprises. I particularly thank the directors, the administrators of social economy businesses of Montreal, as well as the SME Montreal network, who, just like us, have become experts in working remotely, working from home in hyper-accelerated mode. So we are working together, we're working remotely, we work really quickly, we have to make decisions very quickly because we have to adjust ourselves to context that changes every day. And today it changed again. So an extra week. So the city is present and is accompanying you. And I want to tell, to all those different networks that the city is there with you to support Montreal businesses. And we will continue doing so because we know that after the sprint of emergency help, it is now a marathon of gradual recovery of activities that is starting up. And we will be by your side throughout this very long process. I also wish to thank the Commission that did excellent work to document the situation. And of course, we are going to be studying all of the recommendations that were presented to us over the next few weeks. So thank you. Before going to the question period, did you want to say a few words in English? Yes.
Few words in English. First of all, the government of Quebec just announced earlier this afternoon that local businesses will not reopen until May 25th in the greater Montreal area. While I totally agree with this decision, since public health must come first all the time, it is all the more important to help Montreal merchants, which is why today's announcement is so timely. In recent weeks, we have deployed 40 million in emergency assistance from the Quebec government for merchants, announced as a moratorium of loans offered by PME Montreal, and launched an information line for entrepreneurs, which has received more than 5,000 applications since its creation. Today, we are continuing in this direction with the deployment of a grant totaling 5 million, which are available to merchants, social economy businesses, and cultural enterprises. Montreal merchants have shown a great deal of resilience since the beginning of the crisis, and they still do. That is why we are announcing the creation of a 2 million fund to support merchants in their activities. This 2 million represent direct assistance. It is not a loan. This amount is in addition to the 1 million from the Fonds entrepreneurial et commercial, which means that a total of 3 million is available in the form of subsidies for Montreal merchants. And before I give the mic to my colleague Hugh Grabouin to give you more details about that specific announcement, I do want to come back. I would like to review a few points that we find interesting in the report on the vacant premises that was unveiled earlier today. In fact, long before the COVID-19 pandemic, our administration had placed local businesses at the heart of its priorities. We wanted to get a clear picture of the situation in Montreal, which is why we initiated a major public consultation on the issue. Let's keep in mind that this issue is, of course, important here in Montreal, but also elsewhere in Quebec, in Canada, and around the world. The consultation process was outstanding, and I want to say it because despite all the challenges by the pandemic, we were able to conduct 4 consultation methods, some which were tested for the very first time. And I would also like to salute the work of the Commission sur le développement économique et urbain et de l'habitation and the active participation of the public. Commercial arteries play a crucial role in the vitality of our communities. In fact, the commercial sector will be a key element to the city of Montreal's recovery plan. Some of the Commission's recommendations have already been introduced by the city as a measure during the crisis, such as the shift to e-commerce for local businesses. As a result, we set up measures to support businesses that wanted to develop their online presence. We also set up, with our partners and the Société de développement commercial, an ecological delivery service for local businesses. This work could not have been done without the contribution of the Société de développement commercial and businesses associations, which are privileged partners. We want to continue working these groups to identify the specific needs of each commercial artery and streets. The Government of Quebec will be another important partner to help us develop a detailed approach aimed to reducing the business vacancy rate. In particular, the government could make legislative changes to introduce structuring measures such as a framework for commercial leases. Also, very relevant for the future is the recommendation supporting initiatives for temporary or transitional occupancy of vacant commercial, cultural, or community space to help us redefine certain uses. Another idea to be explored by our Economic Development Department is to work with SDC to implement a real estate strategy to acquire buildings on arteries in order to maintain affordability and to ensure a commercial mix. In fact, the more merchants own their premises, either individually or through a nonprofit organization, the less speculation there will be. The creation of a centralized register of vacant premises and a vacancy certificate system will also be considered. The city's Economic Development Department will be mandated to carry out this work. Of course, we are also calling on the people of Montreal to support all local merchants. It was true before, but it is even more so right now. The crisis we are going through is having a major impact on our entrepreneurs and businesses. Supporting them by shopping locally must now, and more than ever, be a priority. I will now turn to Monsieur Rabouin to give us more details about today's announcement.
Thank you. So as we know, the needs are great. And since we are aware of how much Montrealers love their local businesses, the City of Montreal is supporting local participatory funding campaign to be launched in this spring. This project was initiated by and will be led by the not-for-profit organization La Ruche and the Société de développement commercial. The local campaigns will allow people to support their local businesses by purchasing gift cards redeemable at these stores. The city will match the amount of purchases up to a maximum of $500,000, which will be given to businesses in order to help them with their cash flow challenges. Desjardins Group will also contribute to these local campaigns and donate to local community organizations. At the end, these local campaigns, could therefore generate direct investment of $2 million to local businesses and community organizations in Montreal. Many social economy businesses operate in essential sectors and have a huge social impact, both economically and socially. Yet, the challenges are immense for cooperative and not-for-profit organizations in Montreal. they don't really have the capacity to make some loans. So we need to help them to thrive through this crisis. That is why we have set aside $2 million envelope to support social economy businesses. So they will access to grant that will help them to cross this crisis. The money can be used to cover various expenses associated with their working capital, such as salaries, pay their rent, suppliers, or expenses related to the context of the COVID-19. Social economy businesses would also have free access to technical support, representing $300,000 in assistance. Also, another sector that is very affected by the crisis is our cultural enterprises in Montreal. So we have also set aside $500,000 for non-subsidized private venues, including alternative venues and independent cinemas. These cultural institutions play a key role in Montreal's cultural vitality. They also contribute to a lively neighborhood. Unfortunately, they are being hit hard by this pandemic and the containment measures that are in place. In closing, I would like to salute the cooperation of everyone involved in Montreal entrepreneurial community. I also want to thank the Commission, which has worked long and hard to document the vacancy situation that existed long before the crisis, but which was worsened since. All the recommendations will be studied by our teams very quickly. Thank you.
Merci. Bonjour, Monsieur Poirier.
Oui, bonjour, Madame Plante.
Hello, Madame Plante. Over 1,600 deaths in Montreal, and you're saying that the important point is screening. Is there enough in Montreal? I have to say that I am happy that the government's strategy, both of Quebec and public authorities, is to increase the number of tests, and it is absolutely necessary to be able to really know where to target ourselves. The better we have, the better. So the plan was 14,000. There's only 7,000 in Quebec right now. Is it going fast enough for you? Well, I hope that the health network and, all of the government of Quebec as well and public health will find the material and the way of getting there, because in the metropolitan area, we absolutely need having more tests to better understand the situation and to act in a targeted way. Another question on the deconfinement of Montreal. Business owners are starting to be impatient, although they clearly respect the guidelines. Is there a way of giving them a firm date for June and July? Well, for now, the retail will be the 25th of May. Oh, they're scared of other delays. Is there a way of giving them a specific date in June to at least let the clientele know ahead of time? It's done. We're opening in mid-June. As you know, that kind of decision is truly the government of Quebec and the National Public Health authorities that take it. I have very high hopes. I think, like everyone else, such as businesses, we hope that the 25th of May will be the right day. We, on our side, it gives us the opportunity to continue preparing ourselves for that return, because, of course, we're also going to have to make sure that the space is available. But I can't answer more specifically. It has to come from the government of Quebec. But we were talking earlier on, if the screening was there, if we can have targeted actions, then we'll be able to open the businesses on the 25th of May. Certain cities outside of Montreal see Montreal as, like both Montreal and people from Montreal as if we all had the plague. What would you say to Montrealers who want to go to other places? Well, I have first messages. The first is for Montrealers who until now have shown a lot of discipline in following the recommendation. That has to be, repeated. Keeping the 2-meter distance, even though it's difficult. We are in a large city. There's 2 million people on the island. It's normal that it's difficult. Of course, all the gatherings are discouraged, and up until now, I would say that the population has really followed those directives and those guidelines. And of course, wearing a face covering if the 2 meter is difficult to respect. So that is my message for Montrealers to respect and continue following the recommendations. That's very important. And my message for people outside of Montreal is to show solidarity. It is difficult for everyone right now. And I, in the same way that Montreal has show solidarity with regions depending on the situation, I expect that the rest of Quebec will show just as much solidarity because basically during this crisis, we're all human beings, we're all being hit, and we're all Quebecers.
On va poursuivre
C'est
avec
toi qui remplace.
Oui. Question de Jeanne Corriveau du Devoir. 119 des
119 of the new deaths are in Quebec or in Montreal, 104 in Montreal. The situation is not improving. Is it realistic to think of going back to school before the end of the school year? As we know, the prerogative of the government of Quebec and the national public health authorities, it's up to them to take that decision. What I wish is that we make the right decisions, keep in mind the health of our populations everywhere in Quebec, including the metropolitan area. So this week, this postponement of 1 week for schools will allow not only to the schools and daycare centers, but the city as well to continue preparing themselves adequately. And by then, the public health and the health network has a responsibility to make sure that we have sufficient amount of tests to have the necessary information to decide whether, yes or no, everything is ready.
Radio-Canada, comment accueillez-vous le nouveau report de l'ouverture des commerces à Montréal?
And how do you feel about this new postponement? Well, I'm favorable to it because the health of the population must be the most important thing. Of course, it worries me for the population, for business owners, and that is why it's important to make an announcement such as today that reiterates the importance of our business owners and our commercial arteries locally. But more specifically for me, it's important that all the conditions be met in order to be able to reopen the schools and retail. So that will give us a little bit more time for public health, for example, to be able to get information and to act consequently. So some are asking for a specific plan. I'm sorry, what did you say? Business owners are asking for a specific plan to save them for the Montreal area. Well, some help has already been given by the government of Quebec and the federal governments, and the city of Montreal is adding help in complementarity. And we're there to support business owners to navigate through the different sources of income that are available today as well. And we're very proud of that. These are subsidies that we're talking about and not loans. That being said, the representations for help at the provincial and federal level, I understand the concern, especially when we know to what extent our entrepreneurs and business owners are very, very important in the economic fabric.
Journal Métro,
concerning the vacant businesses, what do you think about imposing a tax to those? What do you think? That is one of the recommendations, and I think that now we're taking all the recommendations, and it will be, of course, up to our department, the Division of Economic Development, to study them and to tweak them. But I won't keep it from you that for now, for me, a tax is not at all a good idea. I think that we have to see that recommendations, perhaps to study it in the longer term in a context that will be completely different from now. But right now, a tax for vacant premises is not something that we would think as the best option. What do you think about easing the zonage changes to transform vacant premises into others? I will let my colleague answer. Well, it's very pertinent. The issue is always, the balance between the commercial balance and housing. And as mayor of Le Plateau, we've often done that, because often the buildings are on 2.5 floors, so it's possible to have that. So we have commercial continuity, and that is an idea that we can think about further. Now, the 24 hours, can we quantify the impact of the crisis on the number of vacant premises right now? No, it's very difficult, but we know that it's going to be a lot more depending on the different estimates. We could think of going up to 40 or 50% of vacant premises on certain arteries. We'll see it because now the recovery is now planned for on the 25th of May, so there's nobody that can predict what is going to happen exactly, but for sure, the challenge is much greater now than it was at the time that the Commission made its study. In English now,
What do you say to Montrealers who are scared?
Well, I want to tell them that everything is being put together so we can slowly and in a cohesive way reopen some sectors, reopen schools and daycare. I think we all have a responsibility of course, for Montrealers is to respect the recommendation that we've been saying over and over, not to create any gatherings, respect the 2 meters, wash your hands, wear your face covering if it's difficult to keep the 2 meters distance, but also the fact that the public health authorities and the health network is also working hard right now to do more testing, which is crucial at this point, so we have a better understanding of the situation and target some of the intervention. And from a city perspective, well, the fact that we're trying to support our businesses, the way we are making more space outside for pedestrians, so we can better keep the 2 meters distance. So all that to say that there's a lot of efforts and energy being put together collectively to go through this crisis. So hold on there.
One last question. How bad is COVID-19 for Montreal's economy?
I mean, it's bad, obviously, but it's hard for us to put a number at this time. We will see the damage as we start to reopen some businesses. Maybe the habits will be different. Maybe people will be consuming differently. And we know that there will be a lot of things that will have to change within how we consume. So it's not good. It's definitely not good. But we're not in a place right now where we can put a specific number. Luc, we're good?
Ça conclut la période de questions.
This concludes the question period. Thank you very much.